Hi, friends. It's Lisa Hetrick, illustrator for Gina K Designs, and I'm so grateful you could join me today. I have a really fun card project to share with you today using all of these supplies to create this. And I'm super excited. So let's go ahead and just dive right into the supplies. All of the supplies are going to be listed below in the description. So I'm going to do a quick run through of what I have here. I'm going to use two stamp sets in today's card, and I'm using Melanie Munchinger's beautiful wings here. I love this moth. I've been a little bit obsessed lately with the flutters. If you take a look at my Instagram, I'm participating in the 100-day project where I'm painting a new flutter every day. Super fun. That'll also be linked below for you to take a peek at. And I'm going to be using my Love at All Times stamp set and the coordinating dies that go with it. You can see that this set is already well loved, and I'm going to be using a couple different things from the set. I've got grass green, turquoise sea. I'm using the embossing ink. I've got passionate pink and cherry red, and I've also got a jet black amalgam ink. I've got all the dies here, and again, they'll be listed below. I'm using the new Master Layouts die and the coordinating dies for the stamp images that I'm going to be stamping out. Now, for my supplies, I'm going to be doing some embossing. I've got some glue and my tidy towel, of course, my blocks. And I also have some Gina K Sparkling Sea embellishments that I'm going to be using for the card. My card base is Tranquil Teal, and it's going to be beautiful. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to get started by stamping out all the elements that we need for the card so that I can prepare them for die cutting. Now, this wonky flower that's in the Love at All Times set is kind of like an open peony, like looking at the peony from inside, like down inside. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that out. I've inked it up with passionate pink in the center of that flower, and I'm going around the edge of the flower with some cherry red, and I'm stamping this down once just to kind of show you what that looks like, that we get that kind of two-tone watercolory kind of look to it. But I'm going to stamp it again using passionate pink and cherry red again. And this time I'm going to use another stamp inside of it to create that texture that I want to create. So again, I'm going around the edges with cherry red, and then I'm going to be taking that background cross hatch background stamp from the Love at All Times stamp set, and I'm kissing it, the stamp kissing technique, into the flower. And you can see that it leaves that impression of the lines because they're thick enough. And I'm going to stamp that down. And that's the flower I'm going to use for the card because I want to create some contrast between the background stamp and this embellishment. And you'll see what I mean as we move on to create the card. And I really like that extra texture in that wonky flower, and it's really going to be super fun. So just note that cherry red will stain your stamp. So if that bothers you, don't use cherry red. Use a different color. But I'm wiping it off here, and then I'm going to stamp it down just to show you that it doesn't affect the next time you stamp it. When you stamp, it's going to be completely clean. But if that bothers you, don't use cherry red. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp out the leafery elements from the stamp set, and I'm using grass green. Grass green is a nice little bit of a darker green. I usually use a little bit of a lighter green, but I really want to get some contrast between the greens and the pinks. So now I'm going to go ahead and stamp out this gorgeous moth from the Beautiful Wings stamp set from Melanie Munchinger's new set. Now I'm going to do some silver embossing, and I've hedged back and forth on whether or not I was going to do black embossing, but I really wanted to do silver. I wanted that shimmer and shine, and I also wanted to be not too contrasty between the pinks and the cherry reds. So I just went ahead and stamped that down in the embossing ink, the Gina K embossing ink. You could use your Versamark as well. And I'm going to go ahead and pour some of the silver embossing powder And this is Gina K Silver Embossing Powder. You could use any silver powder that you have or try a different color. It kind of would have looked really cool in a blue now that I think about it, but I'm really digging the silver. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pour that down and just tap off the excess. And I can see that I kind of missed a little bit in the antennae of the moth. So I'm just adding a little bit more embossing powder. And I'm going to give the cardstock a little flick just to get any kind of excess embossing powder off before I use my heat tool to fire it up. And look at that shimmer. I just love it when the embossing powder engages with the heat and just becomes shampoo. Yes, I just love it. So I'm using the coordinating dies here, and I'm going to run them through my Spellbinders Platinum 6, and then here we go. I've got all of the embellishments for the card. I'm going to put them over to the side here and just kind of let them hang out over here while we work on the card base. So I've got Turquoise Sea ink, and I love Turquoise Sea and Tranquil Teal together. They're a nice complementary colors to complementary blues together. So I'm taking this background crosshatch stamp that I have in the Love It All Time stamp set, and I'm lining up that bottom line and that right line with the perforated edges that are in this beautiful scalloped Master Layouts die. This is going to become one of like my new favorites. So I'm just used that and just kind of lined it up with that turquoise sea. And then I'm going to go ahead and ink it up again and then do it and just give it a 180-degree turn and just kind of flip it. And actually 360-degree turn, not just 180. Sorry about that. I'm going to flip it around, and then I'm going to do the same thing in the upper left-hand corner where I'm lining up those lines with the perforated edges that are going inside of the scallop here. And I just love that. Now, I'm not too worried that I kind of got a little bit of a double line there because I'm going to be covering it up with our embellishments. So we're going to let it roll and not worry about it. Okay, so I love this moth, but I want to use the flower as the center of the moth, as the body for the moth. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this beautiful embellishment in two so that I can elongate the wings from left to right. Also, because the scalloped Master Layouts piece is going to fit really nicely on that A2 size card, I can go over the edges a little bit. And I want that flower. That flower's a little bit wonky, and you can see I'm using that elongated petal to just kind of line up the center portion of my body. And then the side petals of the blooms are going to be are just going to kind of flow into the wings of the moth. So I'm just taking a little bit of foam tape here, some of the Gina K Designs foam tape, and I'm cut one piece in half so that I can get the foam tape in the center and so I can nest other things underneath this embellishment. I love this foam tape because it's not doesn't give the project a lot of height, but I can still nest things underneath it so that I can get that texture and dimension. So I'm just going to use a little bit of my Connect glue and just put a little bead of glue on the inside here. And I'm just kind of putting a little bead on both here. And then I'm going to nest it right under those flowers and, well, the flower, and just use those wings to just kind of complete this look of this whimsical and wonky flutter with these beautiful shining wings. And I just love the way this comes out. It's a little funky. It's a little wonky, but I really just kind of dig it. Just kind of using these stamps to do a little bit of a different technique. And just by putting that bead of glue on the center of the moth, I'm able to just kind of lift up the edges of the wings to give them a little bit more dimension. I'm adding the leafery in here too, just to kind of add another color to the project, and also just kind of give it a little bit more like the leafery is part of the wings, just to kind of make this butterfly interesting, have a lot of texture, and just be just kind of fun. Whimsical and wonky is what I'm going to call it. And yeah, loving it, loving it. And I love the crosshatch background, and you can see how it's bringing it together by doing it in that center flower as well. We've got that nice pattern that goes from the top left all the way down to the top to the bottom right. And because it's in that floral, there's really a nice complementary look for the design. So I'm taking the sentiment "a friend loves at all times," and I'm just going to use the jet black amalgam and go ahead and ink it up. And I'm just going to use one of the lines that is in the pattern, and I'm going to line it right up underneath that wonky flutter. And I'm just going to just pop it right in here, and it's black ink. It's going to go right over top of that turquoise sea. And I could have used a little bit of a lighter color if I really wanted it to pop, but I'm digging it. I like it. It goes right in between the two pieces of leafery, and it's just a nice balanced design. So I went ahead and I took some Connect glue and I attached that whole card base element onto the Tranquil Teal A2 card. And now I'm just kind of creating a cascading look for the sequins. I popped a little tiny bit of glue, and I'm going to use this jewel picker and just drop those little sequins in, just to kind of create a little bit of movement around this little wonky flutter. And I'm just digging it. The card comes together really quickly. It's got a little bit of height, a lot of great texture and dimension, using the new master layouts die, and just making me super happy because I've just been having so much fun painting flutters and just kind of enjoying creating. And this is just such a fun card to do that with. I also wanted to share, don't forget that you can download a free card idea sheet and for the Love It All Time stamp set, and the link for that is in the description. It's totally free to you, and it's a gift of grace from me to you. Thanks so much for watching. Please consider sharing the joy by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. And I'm sharing more card and watercolor tutorial videos for your inspiration right here. So come on in and take a peek at my tutorials. I have a lot to share, and I'll see you next time.